Hey, it's Pete and welcome back to Question Christ, and tonight we are going to tackle the question, how do we stop the mosques? Now there's a large amount of people in this country who are getting increasingly concerned about all the mosques that are popping up all over the United States. We know about the one obviously right near Ground Zero and the one that is getting a lot of attention in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. But the question, I think, is the wrong question we're asking. The question shouldn't be, how do we stop the mosques from being built? The question is, why are the mosques being built? Now, from a Christian perspective, most of the mega churches that pop up are from smaller congregations that just grow out of their building. And even though we would love to preach the gospel and reach more people for the gospel, Christians are not going to build big buildings that aren't going to be filled. They're needed. And I would venture to say this is the same thing that's happening with the mosques. There are people who are going. There are more and more people who are going. So the question isn't, how do we stop the mosques? The question is, why are the mosques being built? And the answer is, because Islam is growing exponentially here in the United States. So then the question, unfortunately, is why is that happening? And this is where the Christian has to look at himself painfully in the mirror. The reason is that Christians, the Christian church in North America, has left a vacuum in which Islam can come now and settle into our culture. We have become an insulary culture, the Christian church, where we stay in our own settings, in our own churches, speaking the word of God to each other, patting each other on the back, saying what great Christians we are. And we refuse to step out of our comfort zone and go to someone outside of our sphere of influence, and definitely outside of the cultural, to reach into somebody else's life, especially someone from a different religion. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I just don't feel comfortable. Well, with all due respect, Jesus never asked for you to be comfortable. He said, go out and make disciples of all nations. He didn't say, if you feel like it, or if you're comfortable to do it. This isn't supposed to be a walk in the park. So we have to get out of this kind of, I'm going to stay in my own little area. I'm going to listen to all my Christian music, and I'm going to listen to all my podcasts, and I'm going to talk to all my Christian friends, and I am not going to venture out and engage this culture that we are so concerned about. I mean, how selfish is that of us? One of the reasons people don't feel comfortable is because we are becoming more and more biblically illiterate by the day. Okay, a lot of the most popular preachers these days are a sliver of gospel, and the majority of it is this pop psychology stuff that they're selling. Okay? With all due respect, like Joel Osteen. Okay? Something like that. A thinly veiled prosperity gospel. And having you have your best day now. This is not what the gospel is about. The gospel clearly says that we are supposed to be uncomfortable. We're supposed to be challenged. And we should be doing what Jesus wants us to do, which is to go out and make disciples. And if we are having a true Christian context of the world, if our worldview is in true Christian context, we should look at these people not as enemies and not as someone to fight and beat. We should see them as people who desperately need the truth of Christ in their lives. And so this idea of us against the culture, us against the Muslims, us against Islam is a false dichotomy. And this is why I made a video about the Quran burning, because you break down that bridge that we can reach out. But the thing that makes me disturbed is that Christians don't want to. Not all of us, but the majority of the Christian church is much more happy with just sitting back and letting this happen. And so if we continue to have that bunker mentality, if we continue to not read the Word of God and have it implanted in our hearts so that we could then effectively share that gospel with others, if we're going to see people of other faiths as the enemy rather than people who are made in the image of God, that God desperately wants to redeem but needs them to hear the truth, if we are willing to say, God, I know you want me to make disciples of all nations, but I am just too comfortable here, then we deserve every mosque that is built. We deserve every other place of worship that is built in this country. And we even deserve when the churches don't get built at all anymore. Because we are allowing it. We are not following the gospel. And that is what the problem here is. Now a lot of people are saying, well, the radical Islam, they're taking advantage of us. We have to fight back. That is the world's lie talking to us. We are to be held to a higher standard as Christians. Okay? It is a cliche that this world tries to sell us. Okay? That we need to fight back and we need to give it back to them. And that is what the world sells. Let me ask you, what is more powerful? Scenario number 1. A man has his son abducted. They get the kid back and they arrest the man who did it. But it comes out that this man sexually abused this man's son. So when he is coming in to be booked, the father comes up behind him, pulls out a gun, and shoots the man in the head, killing him. Now, most people would say, well, hey, at least on the surface would say, hey, we should have let the courts deal with it. But there is something inside most people would say, good. That's what he should have done. Because that's what the world says. Get back at him. He hurt you. He hurt your family. Get him back. Take him out. That is the world talking. And that is what we would be like if we lived in our own flesh, without the help of God. But let me ask you if this is more powerful. A woman in Rwanda who has neighbors that they're friends with. They're the kind of people you kind of hang out, have coffee with when your kids go to bed, those kind of people. Then all of a sudden the Rwanda genocide starts. And unfortunately, the neighbors are now the other ethnicity that hate you. And because of the racial flames that are being pushed up, your neighbor comes over one day and kills 2 of your sons and your husband as you flee with your other kids into the jungle. Now this is the people that you used to have in your home, that you used to eat with, that your kids used to play with their kids, and now they are killing your children and they kill your husband as you run with your other kids for your life from people that you used to call your friends. And then when the reconciliation of Rwanda comes back, you forgive this man who did this to your family. And not only do you forgive him, you go and visit him regularly in jail, bringing him sweets, bringing him stuff to make his food sweeter, and becoming friends with this man. How powerful is that? And that is done by the love of Christ. How powerful would we be as a church if we showed that kind of love to people that we are demonizing? I'm not saying we agree or that we are accepting their worldview, but we need to stop with this us against them mentality and show love. And until we do, it's just going to keep going the way it's going. You can't shout down a mosque. You can't legalize or legislate the ending of Islam. The only way you do what you want to do and bring this country back to being a Christian nation is by loving the mosque down, giving them no reason why they need to go anywhere else but to Jesus. Have a good night.